So in this video I'm going to cover bar 62 to bar 67 in the Vivaldi Concerto in E major. So this is a section, it goes up into fourth position and there's some open E string sounded at the same time. So it's So the first thing is to try and get that pattern on the A string correct. So you'll see it has a Roman numeral 4 with L-A-G-E written after it. That means you go to fourth position. And you go to fourth position on the A string. So that means your first finger should be sounding the note E. And you can check the tuning of that with the E string. And if you look at the notes, if you don't look at the open E string notes and you just look at the rest of the notes, you have G sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A. And you'll see the fingering written in 3, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And there's a semitone between the 3 and the 4, which is a G sharp and an A. There's your semitone. And that pattern repeats again. You have 3, 2, 3, 4. Then in bar 63, you see the dynamic piano in brackets underneath. You will have, the first note there is now G natural. You've been playing G sharp all along in the bar 63. Now you play, in bar 64, you play G natural. So the third finger now moves back here and it's touching the second. So yeah. So again, you have the same pattern, just the third finger's in a different place because it's a G natural. So you have 3, 2, 3, 4. And unlike the first one that repeats the same pattern twice, it changes the second time and you have G, F sharp, G to E. So you have... So that second bar there, which is bar 63, altogether is... Now if I play those two bars together, excluding the open E strings, it should sound like this. So bar 62 and 63. Okay, so and once you get the hang of that, that's the crucial thing. A good practice tip is to practice it a string lower. So you'd have... And do that a few times, and then repeat the pattern a string lower again. And once you have that under your fingers and it's fairly secure, then you add in the open E string. And you can use a metronome and just build up speed over time. And again, you could practice it a string lower each time. And then... Okay, so we'll move on to bar 64 now after that. So you're finished with your first finger in fourth position at the end of bar 63. And in bar 64, you go back to half position, okay? Not quite first position, so everything is kind of much lower than it would be in first position. So you bring your first finger back, so. And again, if you excluded the E strings here, and you just looked at the rest of the notes, you have A sharp and C sharp. The A sharp is played with the first finger back on the A string. That's A. That's A sharp. And then you're playing C sharp. It says 3 here, but most people would be used to using a second finger on C sharp. Playing it with the third finger, it's an extra low third finger. Okay, your third finger would normally be here for the note D, but you're bringing it back here for C sharp. Okay, so you just, maybe if you just played the notes without the E string, you have. And once you get that under your fingers, you can slot in the open E string. And then what you could do is you could practice bars 62, 63 and 64 with no E string at all. So you end up with them. And then eventually with the E string. Now that brings me on to bar 65. So you just stay in that position, and all you're doing is moving your third finger across to the D string and leaving your first finger on the A sharp from bar 64. So you're just moving this third finger across. So now instead of playing an F sharp with a second finger, which is what you'd normally do, you're playing it with an extra low third finger. And you just leave the two fingers there. You don't have to do anything else. It's just. And just note that the left hand isn't doing anything. There's no fingers moving. It's just holding down a chord effectively. And all you're doing is, it's the right hand. So you're bowing. And what you could do to get that sounding nice and smooth is perhaps practice it in a few different rhythms. So you could practice it long, short, like this. Long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. And then you might practice it the opposite way. Short, long, short, long, short, long. And do that a few times in the two different rhythms, and maybe use a metronome, and eventually it should sound nice and smooth. And then we move on to the next bar, which is. So for this, it's just going through, in this case, it's a scale of B major. And what you can do here at the end is you hold down the fourth finger while you're playing the fourth finger on the note B on the E string, while you're playing D sharp, C sharp. And then you keep the fourth finger in place, and now you're moving to C sharp, B, C sharp. And notice I'm keeping my fingers down all the time whenever it's possible. And now you do the same thing. You have the A sharp here at the end of bar 67. And then you descend down the scale. And that brings you, that's the start of bar 68. So that covers all of that section from bar 62 to the end of bar 67. So if I just play through that. So if I go from bar 61, just to lead into it. So again, that section. Okay, and that covers that.